Yes, welcome back to the news today. This is the daily debate. A major nuclear non-proliferation conference kicked off today. Maybe somebody was kicked out of the conference today at the UN. Perhaps the most surprising inclusion at the summit, an observer delegation from Israel. Long believed to be the only nuclear power in the Middle East, Israel is ending a 20-year absence in hope of fostering dialogue with Arab states. Also front and center is an anticipated meeting between U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif. Here with me to discuss this is Ambassador Danny Ayalon, former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
Good to have you here, Ambassador Ayalon, and also Dr. Emily Landau, Head of Arms Control and Regional Security, INSS. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Just before, gentlemen, we will continue with this. I just want to go back a little bit to Nepal. We told you that our team in Nepal was stuck and was brought back to Abu Dhabi. We've been reporting throughout a show on the disaster in Nepal with yet another aftershock this evening and some 4,000 people killed. A major part of the problem has been the difficult in getting aid in. One of our correspondents, Shai Ben-Ari, has seen that firsthand and sent us this report moments ago.
Yes, we have been trying to reach the Nepalese city of Kathmandu for the last 2 days or so, but unfortunately have not been able to do so far. The reason for this is essentially there's what could be described as something of an aerial traffic jam in the skies above that city, with a whole multitude of flights requesting permission to land there, including rescue missions, commercial flights, and so on. This flight, in fact, was hovering in the skies above Kathmandu for about an hour until we eventually ran out of fuel. And the decision was taken to divert us to the Indian city of Lucknow, which is where we are now on the ground, basically. Another decision has since been taken to actually divert us back to Abu Dhabi in the UAE, where the idea is to put us on another plane, a larger one with a larger fuel capacity that hopefully could get back to Kathmandu and withstand longer in the air to somehow break through that traffic jam. Aboard this flight are, for example, a French rescue team that is very eager to get to work, of course, as well as other reporter crews like us, as well as many Nepalese relatives of victims of this devastating earthquake, people who have lost their family members, lost their homes, and so forth. Obviously, everybody is very anxious to get to the final destination in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Yeah, it's a really frustrating situation, and we see poor Shai is extremely tired. Of course, thank you for this report. Let's go back to New York and to other parts of the world, and maybe when we see this, we see that other problems are much smaller. But you know, how come Israel decided to suddenly go back 20 years after and say, hello, we're here, welcome, we want to be BFFs again?
I would guess that there are probably two main reasons. The first, I think, is the one that was reported in the media when it came out yesterday or the day before. And that is that Israel is hoping to have meetings on the sidelines with some of the Arab states in the region that have common interests with Israel, certainly vis-a-vis the Iranian nuclear issue. States that are concerned, as Israel is concerned, ahead of the June 30th deadline, what kind of deal will be on the table at that point. We've seen what happened April 2nd, a lot of holes in the American fact sheet, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is probably one reason Israel decided to come. And probably the second reason has to do with this resolution on the Middle East. And what was decided, what was included in the final document in 2010, the last review conference, which said that the parties should work towards holding a conference on a weapons of mass destruction-free zone in the Middle East by the end of 2012. That did not happen. Since then, there have been 5 informal meetings that have been held in Switzerland with the participation of Israel and representatives from the Arab states. They've made some progress, but they haven't made enough progress to overcome the conceptual gaps that exist between, in the positions of both sides as far as what the agenda should be, what the mandate should be, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Israel is probably there also to be monitoring these developments to see how Egypt raises this this time at this review conference, in what manner, how the reactions are, the United States, et cetera, and sort of be close to the dynamics rather than further away.
Yes, you know, I want to take, and continuing to what you're saying, you know, the claim that we opened with is that other countries and maybe other allies that Israel is looking for in this conference to actually back it with not going through with this deal, can come to Israel and tell it, you know, you are no innocent in all this region at all. So you know what we're talking about. If you want this from Iran, you need to give up on that from your side. And it is possible.
Well, it's been a long-standing view of the Arabs, Egypt, which was a great friend of Israel after the peace treaty, but on the issue of Middle East nuclear-free zone, they were the chief advocates to include Israel, and of course to put Dimona under inspection and NPT and everything like that. And always the response from Israel was, well, first of all, we are not members of the NPT because it's a cornerstone of our national security. This ambiguity is a measure of stability in the region to actually dissuade any attacks on Israel. Israel is a very small country surrounded by a sea of hostile enemies, and this is something that has been taken place and was accepted by the Americans, which were our staunch supporters, and they were deflecting all these attacks all this time. We also always told that the problem is not the NPT as such, but the regime. You know, Israel as a democracy has the checks and balances. Also, Israel has never, ever threatened, you know, any other countries. Unlike Saddam Hussein of Iraq, unlike North Korea, unlike, of course, the Ayatollahs. So what we have been saying, it's two different stories. It's comparing apples to oranges. So we should not be in the same box as Iran, Iraq, and any other country.
It's not only comparing apples and oranges. It's just, it seems for me a little bit hypocrisy. It's a hypocrisy to do like a non-nuclear conference when you're actually sitting and trying to reach some kind of an understanding about a nuclear program with a country that actually threatening the entire Middle East and maybe threatening the entire world. So what is it to say, okay, we're peace lovers and we need to do this conference, so we will do it, so everyone will say that we're pro non-nuclear program?
Well, don't forget there are 5 recognized nuclear states that are members of the NPT. So you have 5 states, the P5, that are members of the NPT in a different status. They've made a commitment to work towards disarmament, and the truth be told, the United States and Russia have reduced their nuclear arsenal significantly since the height of the Cold War in the 1960s. They have significantly reduced their nuclear arsenals.
How relevant is it?
But I think what was just said here about the fact that when you discuss nuclear issues, you have to remember the context. You have to remember the states in question. And the state matters, and its record of behavior matters. Israel has a policy of nuclear ambiguity. It's an assumed nuclear state since the late 1960s. It has a record of behavior over those years, a record of restraint and responsibility that matters. Israel is totally defensively oriented in the nuclear realm. That matters. The fact that it never issued a threat, that matters. That whole record is relevant when we talk about nuclear issues. So the fact that we're at the NPT review conference, which seems to make all states identical in the sense that they should all, not have weapons, still we need to look at the states in question. Iran is a member of the treaty, and it has been violating the treaty. That's a very different record of behavior.
And you know what I'm thinking to myself, because I'm thinking what is standing behind Israel's intentions, and of course you put out some really good reasons. I'm also thinking maybe Israel learned from its mistake not taking part of the, let's say, negotiations with Iran and not being sitting on the same table and saying, okay, maybe this is the first step to go back to the business and give our influence on this game.
Well, that certainly could be in the back of the minds. By being there, you get the information, you exchange information. We didn't need that until recently because we have been getting, in a transparent way, all the information from Washington. But it seems to be not the case in the last few months, certainly after the very controversial speech of Prime Minister Netanyahu in Washington. There are other allies, the French, the German, other members of the P5+1 with whom we have very, very close ties and cooperation. But I guess it's good to enlarge the circle of information and contacts, and certainly to be there with the Arab countries, with the relatively moderate Sunni countries, which have the same stake, which have the same reasons to worry about a nuclear Iran as we do, and somehow try and get a united front which would make a difference vis-a-vis the P5+1.
I'm trying to think. The first day that we heard about the framework, we said, okay, it doesn't sound bad. It's okay. It's some good points, some bad points. And then the day after, we started seeing that, okay, bad points, more arguments, arguing a little bit more and understanding that this deal may not be a good deal. 3 days, 1 month after, it seems that this is not, let's say, a deal that can become reality. And, John Kerry right now is meeting with Mohammad Javad Zarif, and what is he going to, in one, maybe tell him, you know what, maybe we went too far? Can he tell him maybe we went too far? Like the United States with Iran, the P5+1 with Iran.
That he would say that to the Iranians?
To the Iranians, yes.
Well, look, I mean, it's all a question of who is going to make more concessions. Right now, the framework agreement or the fact sheet that the White House presented on April 2nd has a few good points, but let's face it, it's full of holes. There's a lot of issues there that lack the specifics. We don't know exactly what they even came to an understanding on with regard to verification mechanisms. It looks like most of the infrastructure will be mothballed rather than dismantled. There's a lot of problems there. Two stark issues came on the table because of the Iranians in the weeks after April 2nd. One has to do with sanctions and one has to do with the verification. And these actually were two issues that looked like they were a little clearer in the framework agreement, that sanctions would be lifted slowly, gradually, in tune with Iranian compliance, and that verification would be pretty much anywhere, anytime, including military facilities. Afterwards, we heard from the Iranians, first from Rouhani, actually first from Zarif. He tweeted, he was the first to tweet, then from Rouhani, and then, of course, in the most stark manner, from the supreme leader, from Khamenei, that sanctions must be lifted, the day that they sign the agreement, and there will be no entrance of inspectors into military facilities. Now, on the sanctions, we've already seen Obama back down a little bit in the past weeks. And it seems that there is going to be some bonus that the Iranians are going to get right at the start. If they start caving with regard to inspections, this deal will not be a deal that can fulfill the goal for which it was created, and we'll have a big problem.
And exactly with this point, when the Iranians are basically saying to the Americans, we are going to do whatever we want, we are going to say whatever we want, on the diplomatic level, can the United, especially when now there is a reporter that is abducted in Iran, that is in jail in Iran, can the United States still say, yes, we are with you, yes, you know what, we will be easy on you? Can the United States afford this to itself?
It will be very difficult. I think now, after all the holes have been exposed, especially by the Iranians, this was when the Congress could really weigh in. Until this exposition by the Iranians, Obama tried to keep out Congress, and he didn't yield to any pressure. But after what was revealed, with all the holes, many Democrats moved to the other side. Most prominently is the Senator Schumer, the Democrat from New York. So now the Congress is in. So it will be very difficult for the administration now to give any more concessions. If anything, they would toughen. And if you ask me if the Americans can bring the Iranians into more concessions, absolutely they can. They have the capability. The question is, do they have the will? So far, they have been conducting the negotiations with kid gloves, as if the Iranians are the ones, holding all the cards. I believe without credible threat on the one hand, credible threat not just in military, but also with sanctions, more sanctions that brought actually the Iranians in the first place to the negotiation table, more pressure, I think, would have resulted in better yields and in better answers from Iran. This, I hope this is not too late to bring back the Iranians to task and to
and
concession
I think
mode.
in one way or another, it's good that Israel is keeping its eyes open, sitting still on the edge. Gentlemen, my lady, thank you very much for being with me in this discussion. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and then we will be back discussing about all the rescue efforts being made right now in Nepal. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes, and I'll be back.